Electricast.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Learn more and get a quote at usaa.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Polestar. There's only one true way to experience the all-electric luxury SUV Polestar 3, and that's to take a test drive. It can go from 0 to 60 in as little as 4.8 seconds with the dynamic handling of a sports car. But to truly understand how it commands the road, you need to be behind the wheel. Up to 350 miles of range, the 3D surround sound system by Bowers & Wilkins. It's all something you have to experience to believe. So book your test drive for Polestar 3 today at polestar.com.
Hold on to your butts.
We are changing the course of history as we see it. That is what Wesley demands.
Now this affects Iris. Iris, where are you?
What you feel only matters to you. I do not entertain hypotheticals. The world as it is vexing enough.
Iris, I have a tip for you.
Don't take drugs!
Or Whatever Movies with Wesley and Iris.
What up, and welcome to Or Whatever Movies. I'm your co-host, Iris, and I'm here with my older brother,
Wesley.
Today we're talking a movie from 1985, Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
But from what I understand, Pee-wee as himself is a look back, obviously, and not for kids. It's not Big Adventure. It's not Pee-wee's Playhouse or Big Top Pee-wee or Pee-wee's Grand Christmas or whatever. But it's looking back from a perspective, and looking back critically, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, pretty nuts.
Oh, I see. Critically, watching it critically as opposed to watching it like passively or just for entertainment and enjoyment.
Which I did when I was a kid. And it was cool. And then it was decidedly uncool when I was a teenager, because I don't know if you know, but in the 90s, the jock stereotype and the nerd stereotype were firmly in place, one being decidedly cooler than the other. So Pee-wee's nerdiness was super uncool 10 years later in the 90s.
I think it was just you. It wasn't that younger kids weren't still enjoying Pee-wee content.
So what am I doing here now at my advanced age, maybe sticking up for Pee-wee's Big Adventure? I don't know that it's necessary because I think the fan base is hardcore, but Gene Siskel at the time, 85, said that it was one of the worst of the year. And then I've long said that Roger Ebert is the man, because he seemed to understand films the way I did. I understood his reviews, and he lists this as one of his guilty pleasure movies. And he finished with saying, kids can look at it in one state of mind, while the grown-ups enjoy it on a completely different level. And there was a sizable gap between me understanding it as a kid and then enjoying it as an adult.
So was Pee-wee's Big Adventure divisive at the time in 1985?
Well, Warner Brothers thought that it wasn't sure what they had. They were like, we're not sure if this has appeal. So let's do a very limited, regional release. Put it in a few theaters, got a big response, widened it even more, and then eventually on basically a nothing budget, maybe $7 million. I think they made over 40 in return when they eventually released it wide. And I think it was divided, yeah, but definitely solidified as a cult classic and often ranked as one of the 100 funniest movies of all time.
It's definitely delightful.
I watched it with this fascination that I don't remember doing before. Pee-wee's just Pee-wee. But to watch a grown man play a man-child like this, his mannerisms are so, I don't know how to say it other than perfectly Pee-wee Herman. It's so uniquely him, but so specifically him. I came to this realization that Pee-wee Herman is not cool. Everyone views him as the 98-pound weakling that he actually is. And yet he's so entertaining to watch. I think what I'm saying can be typified in the tequila dance, which I remember in the 90s looking at it and be like, why did I like this? This is so stupid. And it's so effective and catchy and charming as an adult that I had to kind of rethink why that was the case. Like, that dance is weird in those clogs. What is he doing? and yet it's mesmerizing and just, I think the character of Pee-wee in general, nobody could do it. No, they're never going to remake Pee-wee Herman movies with somebody else.
No, they couldn't. They couldn't possibly. I think it comes down to how completely committed Paul Rubens is to the character. He's an alter ego extension of Paul Rubens. In Pee-wee as himself, he talks about his commitment to conceptual art, which Pee-wee started as, that he's a concept, that he was living art. He was so committed to it. And the character itself is so committed. And when I say it's like so authentic to him, it's because in moments like the tequila dance, those were actually Paul Rubens' clogs. He was like, I had those somewhere in my closet.
A lot of the stuff in his house was from his personal collection as well.
And what a collector he was too. And that's the thing, right? That Pee-wee Herman's house, which is uber decorated, not different than Paul Rubens' childhood room or dorm room or apartment, or eventually his final home, and storage facility, which were completely overridden with all of the things that he just collected. He was this consummate collector, not only of things, knickknacks, and whatnot that inspired him, but of ideas and concepts and characters that he infused into the Pee-wee Herman character.
And so what I really want to know about all this, how did the girls react to Pee-wee's Big Adventure? It's a little bit like Willy Wonka. Just Willy Wonka hits the road.
Willy Wonka's Wild Road Trip.
Were they scared? Did they laugh gleefully?
Well, the girls are also kind of new to live action. And Paloma's in this funny in-between stage where she wants to be grown up, but she's still a little kid. And she can oscillate between watching Bluey and Pee-wee's Big Adventure, or Goonies, or Back to the Future, which we also watched this weekend. And so I was a little nervous going in, like, is she going to take to this? Was Pee-wee's Big Adventure something kind of unique to my childhood, our generation? And at first she was a little tepid. She was like, this guy is weird, but she really warmed up to it. And once she and the girls started to understand the rules of this world, which are fantastical and delightful. One of their big first clues was he's in his jammies with his bunny slippers and he comes down the pole and he's fully dressed in his Pee-wee uniform. And they were like, that was weird. But once I think they understood the rules of the world, they could just start luxuriating in it. And by the end, she's kicking her legs and laughing at just how ridiculous it is. The thing is, the story works. When you really track the story, even though it is made up of all of these sketches of these different characters that he meets and encounters along the way, when you really think about it, the story tracks. And I think it's because it's so simple. Boy loves his bike gets stolen, boy gets his bike back.
Weird characters in between, yeah.
With all the weird characters in between, but that's something that kids can track and understand.
I think it also has this idea of the big wide world. The fact that these weirdos, these fun people are out there on the road in truck stop diners and dark alleyway psychics and Warner Brothers backlot people, you know, it seems it's expansive in that he goes truly on an adventure and meets an assorted cast of people along the travels, none of whom factor in, you know, in a very serious way, even if they come around at the end. Did she get kind of a sense of wonder at that, or was it all sort of as weird as Pee-wee's World?
I think that's a good point, that it feels wide and broad and out there and therefore scary. I didn't really realize that maybe part of what scared me about Pee-wee's Big Adventure as a child was just the wild world out there idea.
And then we come to it, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, because you were bracing.
I was bracing myself for what?
For the ultimate moment of Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Wait, are you talking about Large Marge?
How could I not be talking about Large Marge? How did that go over?
See, Paloma does best when she has a heads up. So at the risk of being, you know, spoiler central, I gave her a heads up when scary things were going to come. And she takes it so much better when I do. So I said, this is the scariest part, Paloma. It's coming up. And she cuddled close and she held onto my arm. And then afterwards, Bean was like, that wasn't scary. Large Marge still scares me.
It almost got cut. Tim Burton said that the special effects one-offs like that, not tied to the story, are the first thing to go. He did consider it, and it is the defining moment. It's the most memorable moment of Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
It is definitely the most Tim Burton moment. And I love how not only does Paul Rubens track in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, but Tim Burton tracks. Can you not see all of the beginnings of Tim Burton in Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
Oh, yeah.
His first feature?
As far as Tim Burton moments go, maybe not Large Marge as much as the dream sequences and the doctor and scampering through Beetlejuice hallways and stuff. And Francis being like, no, and they torched the bike and stuff. That was very Tim Burton. If there's a single contribution to movie history, it was Paul Rubens was like, I like this band Oingo Boingo. We should hire the lead singer to compose the music. And Tim Burton was like, oh, I like that dude too. And they hired Danny Elfman. And this was the first Tim Burton-Danny Elfman collaboration.
And I was thinking about the music and how well it plays into the movie, especially the sequence that comes to mind is when Pee-wee goes to Francis's house. The moment that he leaves the police station, it's the score that make the whole Francis sequence sing or soar or work. Like, what do you think came first? Him banging on that door in that specific sequence or the music?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, it's not timed perfectly, but it's got that childish kind of fun thing where he's like all dramatic in his gestures. I would like to think the movie came first and then Elfman found his way via the visuals.
And he uses that wonderful horror sting for when Pee-wee crosses in the background behind Francis's doorman. And when he jumps into the pool, like all of that, the music really made that scene for me.
Okay, gotta get to it. You talked about the rules of this world and how the girls were able to settle in. Is this world magical?
Well,
dropping down the fire pole and being fully dressed, just a fun transition? Or did he really get dressed in the process where when he goes down that fire pole every day, he's dressed?
That's a good question. And you could say early on in the film that it was just a transition. But there are other inexplicable Pee-wee magical moments. Where is the disembodied hand door knocker when he's approaching Francis's house? Right? That appears out of nowhere. How do he and Mickey get changed so quickly?
Where did those outfits come from?
Right, exactly. Right. So there's something magical about Pee-wee, and he has this ability to kind of bend time and objects to his will that defy the laws of physics. And so as you go through the motions, you realize that the same rules of the world that is otherwise pretty normal don't apply to Pee-wee Herman.
You're saying they actually happen in Pee-wee's world, and they're not just his imagination upon recollection of his big adventure.
Well, it can't be just his imagination that he and Mickey survive driving off the cliff.
Well, I guess.
We see Mickey later at the drive-in, unless the whole thing is a dream, which would be a terrible cheat.
Oh, yeah, a terrible cheat. But also fanciful that the prison system, the warden was like, well, you got to go see your friend's movie, and pulled the prison bus up into the drive-in.
Do you think that was a bus full of prisoners?
No, just for Mickey, because his crime wasn't that bad. He tore the mattress tag off. So does the clown actually laugh at him with a scary clown face after the bike is gone?
Ooh, does the face change?
It changes. The car parachute is wonky. The Tarzan swing on the bike. Does he actually turbo boost the bike over the house?
Yes, it's outfitted with all the James Bond stuff.
Right? The ejector seat, the ET level ejector seat in front of Francis over the movie screen, basically over the moon, 100 feet in the air. And is there anything more fanciful than the idea that a major motion picture studio would approach Pee-wee and be like, we love your story. We want to make it into a movie. And then he immediately gets a feature film made about him?
He gives the studio exec the hot dog and he goes, thanks, babe.
right? There's that stuff that's fantastical. And then there's the stuff that's just fun. His house, I was fine with the Rube Goldberg device for making breakfast. It's very Back to the Future, right around the same time.
Also very Goonies.
He's got a huge toothbrush. That's fine, but not that butter knife. That butter knife annoys me every time. I'm bracing for the butter knife.
Why?
It's floppy and it's not metal and it's ineffective at spreading butter. I hate that butter knife. And I know that's a weird thing to stick on, but when you're bracing for large margin, you're preparing your kid. I always brace for the chalkboard scene in Jaws. It hurts me just to think about it. And for Pee-wee's Big Adventure, I always am like, oh, I hate that stupid knife.
Jaws, our discussion for which is available at orwhatevermovies.com or wherever you get podcasts. Happy 50th anniversary to Jaws. I love the butter knife. It needs to be floppy.
You can't apply butter with a red vine?
It's the perfect amount of floppiness. And I love that in the entire breakfast sequence, it's the butter knife that you take umbrage with. That was the part that Dave laughed at when he takes 2 bites of the Mr. T cereal and then wipes his mouth after the whole elaborate breakfast sequence.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
Finding a new job is stressful. But with Indeed, it doesn't have to be. Just fill out your Indeed profile with your skills, experience, and desired salary. The more you fill out, the better your matches will be. And hearing from hiring managers will be 2 times more likely. Relax. That's your Indeed profile sending opportunities your way. Indeed, the world can work better.
And of course, you know, Mr. T cereal, definitely a real thing that we've both eaten.
Have we really?
Yeah. It was discontinued in 93, but it had a good long run. At the time, people were like, oh yeah, Mr. T cereal. That's obviously what Pee-wee would eat.
Why? Because he's so tough?
Just because it's funny, because he could do the voice. And Pee-wee is polar opposite from Mr. T.
That's right. He's polar opposite of Mr. T, and yet Pee-wee Herman is tough. He's a loner, he's a rebel, and you don't want to get mixed up with a guy like him, as he most aptly displays in that back alley when he hisses at the thugs.
Yeah, the one of the thugs being Tim Burton. He's actually scary when he hisses and he's lit all crazy. You know, Large Marge is scary for a reason. Is Tim Burton, even though this is his first feature film, is he so talented so that his vision demonstrates all the facets of Pee-wee's personality to great effect? Like a nerd who hisses at you in the rain isn't going to scare you and all the thugs run away. That was my little kid logic trying to assess what this zany movie was. And I remember being terrified of Large Marge, and I was older than you, so you must have been scared. But looking at this movie from a child's perspective and then reevaluating it as an adult is trippy because that's no longer the scariest part. How old is Large Marge?
50?
Large Marge in the movie, because they show the plaque with her name several times, just over 36 years old.
No.
Yep. And the guy said,
Stop.
In fact, this is the anniversary of her death. And you remember he gets in the cab and she says, it was a night just like tonight, 10 years ago. Worst accident I ever seen. Do you know that even if Large Marge's ghost had continued to age, I'm still older than Large Marge in the movie? Even 10 years after her death?
By a couple years, at least.
Terrifying. I had a really hard time with the idea that Large Marge was 36 years old.
Well, Paul Rubens, 28? I think he was still young enough to think that 36 was ancient. You asked about magic and how it works in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. It's one of these questions that continue to gnaw at me. And the other one for me is Pee-wee Herman a child? is he a child or is he an adult? And how do he and people like Francis work in this world? Like, does it not bump for you when you see Pee-wee driving Mickey's car?
Well, he's terrible at it, for one thing. It's much worse when he does that like biker handshake and then promptly rides through the sign on the motorcycle.
And then wipes out right behind it.
If anything makes me laugh in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, it's that motorcycle scene.
Well, the whole lead up to it is so good because he's like a jerk and then he leaves. Then they're going to take him out and then he endears them to him. And then they're best buds, so much so that they give him a bike and then he wipes out.
Yeah, they give him one of their bikes after he knocked over all the other bikes.
And you think this is his chance to be badass and to like tear off on a motorcycle, right?
Now he's going to find his bike with this other bike, and he's going to push that bike over and get on his glorious magical bike. Not so much. Also,
good.
The biggest cameo in the movie, at least for me, the most impactful cameo.
Who?
Who plays the biker mama who says, I think you should let me have him first.
And then they all go, ooh. Ooh. Who?
Cassandra Peterson of Elvira, Mistress of the Dark fame.
Oh, wow. You know, I also noticed an Elvira Easter egg outside the magic shop. She had a poster.
At Mario's.
Right, exactly.
To answer your earlier question, I do think that he was a man. But all the synopses for the movie, a man-child gets his bike stolen and goes on the biggest adventure of his life. Man-child seems to be the term most frequently associated with Pee-wee Herman. It seems absurd, this idea that Francis would actually be a child. There's no way, even though he's obviously a full-grown adult. I think Pee-wee is full-grown. He rides a motorcycle. He drives a car. He lives in a house by himself. He has custom security for his bike and all the Rube Goldberg stuff, and he designs it the way he wants. He's a dude with a budget. I don't know how Pee-wee makes money, but I think he's his own man.
Okay. And he and Francis are just kind of anomalous man-children in an otherwise somewhat, like neighbor Bill or whatever his name was not a child. Like Mr. Buxton's not a child.
No, definitely not. But speaking of Mr. Buxton, Francis obviously gets the trick gum. He only bought one pack of trick gum. Were they each individual tricks? What was wrong with Mr. Buxton's gum?
Well, Buxton chooses fruit, right? So I assume that Francis got mint and that it must have been a variety pack that with multiple flavors. Francis's tasted fine. He just doesn't realize it's turning his mouth black, whereas Mr. Buxton's was probably spicy or disgusting in general.
I'm just saying Francis should know that it's dripping down his chin.
He should know it's dripping down his chin, but he wouldn't know that it was turning his mouth black.
So he's a loner. He's a rebel. Dottie is all about Pee-wee. Is he a man or is he a child? I'm going with man because Pee-wee Herman gets more chicks after him than Anthony Perkins' Joseph K. in The Trial. That's the first time these two movies have ever been compared.
And for the record, in The Trial, Anthony Perkins gets a lot of chicks.
But he doesn't seem interested, but it's pretty adult. And there are things that I didn't get. Andy is big and scary because Andy's big and scary, not because Simone says, I've been waiting for somebody to put it to me like that for so long. These are adult scenarios.
She's saying that because Andy needs something more than they just went and sat in the dinosaur to go on.
I know that. Andy thinks that Pee-wee gave Simone a big bone for her big butt, but so he goes and gets a big bone of his own to try to kill Pee-wee with.
Andy's in a fat suit.
Paul Rubin said he wanted another guy named Andrei Rusimov to be Andy, but Andre the Giant wasn't available.
Oh, wow.
Our discussion of The Trial and Andre the Giant available now at orwhatevermovies.com or wherever you get podcasts.
So, which leads me to the last lingering question.
I have many more, but okay.
Which is Pee-wee Herman gay?
Is Pee-wee Herman, the character, gay? I don't think so. He and Dottie ultimately ride off, but I think it is a child.
I like you. I like
you. But then they ultimately go to the their ride off is Lion King romantic. But I think it's a moot point. He is still a child at heart and in mind, and I don't think these factor in. It's not necessary.
It's not necessary in the sense that Pee-wee's sexual orientation is not the point of Pee-wee's Big Adventure. But gayness in a cultural social sense, we're talking about the presentation of a flamboyant, fantastical, fabulous lifestyle. You know what I mean?
Yes, I think I know what you mean anyway.
Everything about Pee-wee is so obviously in-your-face gay, and yet not at all.
It's not really a spoiler because it's what all the headlines have been touting, that Pee-wee as himself makes a revelation after his death that Paul Reubens was gay.
Very gay, but also in his own way still uncomfortable with being out.
Paul Reubens' big downfall in the 90s was that he was arrested at a porno theater. He was doing inappropriate things all by himself. And also, I think if it were a gay porno theater, that would have made very different headlines at the time. So was he gay? Is he not completely gay? It wasn't strange that he bounced right off of Dottie, that Simone was very touchy and very city of love, but they didn't seem to have, the intimate connection that Andy assumed. So I get the sense that this revelation in the Pee-wee as himself documentary wasn't all that shocking.
It was so obvious. How do we miss it?
I loved Pee-wee's Big Adventure as a kid, not so much as a teenager, came to love it again as an adult, and for, I think, different reasons, none of which concern the romantic angle of the movie.
It's another part of Pee-wee's magic. Because what does it mean to be gay presenting? When you look at this world where they're fantastical characters and at the end everyone is accepted and included, it's about the culture that goes with it, that he gives us entree to, the very fun and innocent side of it. And so I think what was so shocking about the revelation was the more underground side that we did not associate with the Pee-wee character. Because I think we always knew, subliminally, subconsciously we knew, but we didn't know in an adult sense.
Sure. Maybe this movie in that way, in Pee-wee's world, everyone's accepting. There's the bad guys, the bad guys in the alley, the Tim Burton bad guys who were going to mug him. But everyone else, Pee-wee either turns away from them, or when Mickey rejects him and he's like, out, then I feel kind of bad. And I'm like, when I was a kid, I was like, oh, why is he being a jerk to Pee-wee? But then you note that Mickey is the most supportive later. Out the bus. This is fantastic, Pee-wee. He's like super excited. But everybody's friends and accepting, and it's all good, whether they be the BMX kids or the hobos or whatever, or Mickey ultimately, and maybe there's harmony in a weird world where Pee-wee isn't as weird as he is depicted to us on screen. There are elements of danger and there are scary things, but it can also be fun. And if you step outside of the phone booth, everybody will sing Deep in the Heart of Texas and do the clap. You know what I mean? It's just, it's all there for the taking, and the opportunities are boundless, either to make friends or to escape or to effect a rescue of your bike or whatever it is you need to do. He's not limited by the fact that he's Pee-wee.
That moment feels like the whole movie's engineered around that moment. For him to say, I remember the Alamo.
Woo! It's kind of bizarre as I make my way through American culture over the decades, how much I come back to this movie. The Cabazon dinosaurs, this concept, this idea of the Alamo, fortune tellers, the bike shop at Santa Monica at 3rd Street Promenade, the whole promenade, the bike scene taking place at the promenade. I come back to this movie, I'm reminded of it a lot, because we grew up, kind of around this area.
Yeah, this was in many ways our world. Okay, I have some, to close out the episode, I have some Pee Wee Herman quizzes for you.
Okay.
What is the connection between Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Back to the Future?
The Rube Goldberg device up front. Are you talking about like a casting connection?
Yep.
Or like a specific reference? Is it the magical machine that is Pee-wee's bike? Give me a hint.
It's casting.
I do know that Biff, that Tom Wilson, he auditioned or was considered for the part of Francis.
No way.
Leah Thompson, likewise, was up for Dottie. This around the same time before they kind of broke big with Back to the Future. I cannot think. I cannot think who would be cast that was in Back to the Future.
What's a rerun?
Oh, got it. Wow. Jason Hervey is so the Wonder Years to me. I forgot for a second he was Lorraine's little brother. Toby, I think his name was, in Back to the Future. Good one. I am ready. I have been ready since first call. I am ready. Roll.
How do you like school, Wes?
Oh, it's well, like I wish it was over, or when it's over, or something, right?
Closed.
Close. I say we let him go. No! First we hang him, and then we kill him.
So I think to sum it up, Pee-wee's Big Adventure is a movie that defies logic. It's hard to understand or to pinpoint how or why it succeeds, but you know it does.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure, in a weird way, tracks. Things can be forgiven. Vignettes that are, if not funny, at least clever, to where I'm strangely drawn to this movie. I don't know about a totally for this movie, but it was a totally for me, for our childhood, for reviewing it with such satisfaction as an adult. I can't get away from it. I still think it exists as a kid's movie with a lot to be appreciated as an adult.
And that's our discussion on Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Available, I watched it on Max.
Yep.
Right after watching Pee-wee as himself. We hope you enjoyed this discussion on Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Wait.
If you did.
Wait. What's your verdict?
Oh, Pee-wee's Big Adventure is the best.
The best. New rating classification.
818-835-0473 or whatevermovies@gmail.com. And go to orwhatevermovies.com for 300 plus additional... 300 plus? Yeah, including the
nearly
bonuses.
400. Bunch of Tim Burtons in there. Bunch of Danny Elfmans in there. Not so many Paul Rubenses.
At orwhatevermovies.com or wherever you get podcasts. And thank you for listening. I'm Iris, host of Or Whatever Movies and the forthcoming Powers of Darkness podcast. For the better part of a decade, we've been unraveling a literary mystery that begins with a strange version of Dracula. Yes, that Dracula. It's a different story, imbued with a potentially insidious agenda. What we've already found so far reshapes what we thought we knew, but the investigation isn't over. Support our efforts to finish what we've started and bring the full story to light. Go now to Kickstarter.com and search up Powers of Darkness to learn more. Coming soon on Electricast, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Electricast.
Hi, I'm Mark.
And I'm Peter.
We're the founders of Electricast Media, bringing you great podcasts like Nightmare Road Stories, Tech Talk Revolution, and Bodacious Minds.
Electricast networks include Ruby for female empowerment, the Best Business Network, and GPN for geopolitics. We built this company to create community and amplify diverse voices, and we really appreciate your support.
So, keep listening to Electricast podcasts and hear the culture.
Electricast.